Hello friends, Nathan from AutoTempest here. Welcome to the first race of the Vika Summer Series for 2023. Didn't much feel like summer, as you saw in the intro, but it was a great day. I think this was actually my best kart race so far, which admittedly isn't saying a lot since it's like my fourth, but I avoided doing anything particularly stupid, so I don't mind patting myself on the back. It sprinkled a bit during the practice sessions, but it's mostly held off up to qualifying here. And I managed to get out relatively near the front of the pack, so my hope is to just stick with someone pretty quick and hope to get a good lap in. I'm going to get by one guy here, and then I've got Mitchell up ahead of me next. He definitely is quicker than me, so if I could manage to catch up to him while he's held up there, that would be perfect. I was roughly keeping pace for a lap or so there, but I just keep making these little mistakes that causes me to drop back, so I'm not able to close that gap. Same thing again here. I mean, part of it is that the tires aren't warm yet, but part of it too is I'm just not really anticipating those well, so I'm having to catch those little slides. So he's going to get by this guy, and then I close up that gap fairly quickly, but then again totally blow this corner, this time probably because of the extra speed from the draft and just not being ready for that. Though I don't know, honestly, it just kind of looked like I forgot to turn in. Anyway, next lap I'm going to catch up in roughly the same spot, and this time take that corner properly. But unfortunately I don't really have anywhere to go, so I can't get by him. I end up just kind of bump drafting. I think this ends up being my qualifying lap, because the last one we're going to be on a much better lap, but then again hit traffic and so can't complete it. Yeah, that wasn't great, but not the end of the world. But this next part here is where I really get caught out. Ugh. Yeah, so that one was blown. Maybe that wasn't the fast lap. Anyway, at this point I'm figuring, okay, I'm not going to pass him after all, but I've got a good gap here. This should be just close enough that I can get some draft toward the end of the lap, but hopefully enough of a gap that I can set a fast one here. And good thing, because apparently this is the last chance. So let's watch. So there you go. It was a 1 minute .9, which puts me 8th to start the pre-final. It could have been obviously a little bit faster if not for catching traffic toward the end there, but I'll take it. So, between qualifying and the pre-final, the rain finally started for real. I don't mind that too much though, because I seem to do better in the wet. Honestly, I think it helps make my more common mistakes less costly. In the dry, when you oversteer these karts, it's like throwing a boat anchor behind you, and you'd spend so much of the lap flat that it's super costly. But in the wet, you don't scrub off nearly as much speed with little slides, so I get away with it a bit more. Of course, ultimately the goal will be to get smoother and spend less time sliding around, but for now, this helps. Anyway, with the race starting here, my only goal is to get through the first corner safely. I know I can make some passes this race, but there's lots of time for that later. And there we go, mission accomplished. Got through the first corner and even got a decent run out of it, and a good gap to this guy, so I'm actually catching up to him at the right time, and I should be able to make a fairly straightforward pass here. Although I must admit I was being very careful because I did not want to lose it taking that shallow line into there trying to get by him. And I guess there's another one. Maybe he didn't cover his air filter. So a bit of a gap to cover here now. Just going to try and be nice and smooth and get into a rhythm here. That's the kind of little catch that would have been really painful in the dry and is only somewhat painful in the wet. I have no idea why I lifted for a second there. It looks like I was wiping my visor and, I don't know, forgot to press the throttle. Definitely had less grip than I was expecting going in there, but it appears I wasn't the only one, so I'm still gaining here. And looks like some more water intake issues there. Like I said, it started raining fairly quickly, but I will gladly take that place. So I've got a bit of ground to make up over this next lap now. First, I'm going to try and not ask too much, there we go, of the rear out of that corner, so I don't have to catch a slide that time. Obviously, that's going to give me more speed all the way down this straight, which would be helpful. As I come up here, I want to be all the way to the outside. Apex fairly late, not right at the seam there, but kind of at the round part of the dirt on the inside. This is all fairly easy flat, even in the wet. And then coming up here in the dry, this is just a slight lift, if anything, but in the wet, I was kind of feathering the brake. And again, that was pretty good through there. I maybe could have kept a little bit more speed on the exit, but at least, again, I wasn't catching a slide, so wasn't slowing myself down too much. That one is easy flat in the dry, and in the wet, I was almost flat. Just a little bit of feathering at the entrance. Now through here, I was actually surprised at how much ground I made up. I know that Chris in the 84 right in front of me here was having some mechanical issues later in this session, so I wonder if that was starting to affect him, or maybe just if he was worried about catching Mitchell in the middle of that sequence and so backed off a little bit. But anyway, I managed to close up that gap pretty much, and I'm in his draft now. Briefly considered going for a bit of a dive bomb here, but I figured it would make more sense to slot in behind and hopefully work together up the pack a little bit. Feather just a little bit here because I didn't want to catch him right in the middle of this corner, but I lifted a little bit too much, so unfortunately I didn't catch him on the straight like I wanted to. His line through here is better. I overslowed a little bit on the entrance, so he's able to carry more speed through, and that's why he's swinging out wide. Obviously taking the shorter route does save me a little bit of time, but it doesn't make up for that extra speed. Now, fortunately I made it up in that corner, so I could consider sending it at the end of this straight, but with this lapped cart on the left here, he's kind of over defensive anyway, and I'm not all that close, so we can be patient. Phew, that was a bit close. I figured now, though, he's appearing to have some issues, or at least I'm faster, so I'm going to pull up ahead here, and then we can still hopefully try and work together. Which might be necessary, because it's quite a gap to Mitchell up there, and he is quick. So, let's see if we can close that up. I was really enjoying having the tire tracks in the wet of someone who knows what they're doing, especially on corners like this one, where I very much don't. And look at that, it lets me actually take a decent line through there and not have to catch a big slide, and seems to be helping. Just a tiny bit of working the throttle right there, but really close to flat, which is pretty good for the conditions. Still definitely working on this sequence as well. I think the main thing is this transition from turning right here to left. I actually should have probably made that transition sooner, but I think the thing about that is to just not waste any grip. You don't want to phase in the middle where you're just basically driving straight and not using the grip of the tires. You want to be turning right and then turning left. And if you can kind of open up the corners to do that and be planning ahead, then you can carry quite a bit more speed through there. So right now it looks like the gap is just about identical to what it was last lap, but I think he's going to catch up to some slower traffic in just a second. Yeah, right up here, and that's going to help me out. Well, I wouldn't blame you for thinking that I blew that corner yet again. I actually intentionally took the short line through there with the late apex that time because of the yellow and not knowing what I was going to encounter up the hill. So this lap traffic definitely helps me finish closing the gap here. He had to go the long way around and I get a bit of a draft here, and then there will be another one towards the end of the chicane that helps too. Now honestly, if I could go back and do this again, I would pass there. But at the time, I was thinking he is normally faster than me, and if I can just stick with him, it should be good for the rest of the race, and then I can try and make a move later. You know, watching it back, the closing speed was fairly high, and I think I could have gotten around fairly easily, but that's not what I did. And of course, whether I could have stayed ahead is another question. Same thing here, I didn't want to send it in too hot under that yellow light, so I do end up losing a little bit. But I'm still just about close enough to get that draft as long as I can get a good exit out of this corner. And almost had to catch a little bit, but not too bad. Unfortunately, he's got a draft over this lapped kart and is able to get by in an opportune spot. I get by fairly easily as well, but still that meant I didn't have a draft advantage there, so the gap is fairly similar. And I was starting to think I might be getting closer through the chicane there, but obviously he got better exit speed than me and is again pulling away. And that's the white flag, so not terribly likely I'm thinking that I'm going to make up this gap in this lap, but let's just bring it home. Not without a little bit of final excitement, I guess. Anyway, there it was, from 9th up to 3rd in the pre-final, and you know, it wasn't perfect by any means, but it was definitely my best session so far. So I'm actually pretty happy to be starting the final in 3rd rather than 2nd, because I'm right behind Xylus here, he's incredibly fast, and I figure if I can just try to stick to him for as long as possible, that'll be good. And actually get quite a good start there and manage to stop Mitchell from cutting over in front of me. So I am able to follow on the inside here and get up into 2nd, at least for now. I suppose I could have taken a dive down the inside there, but this one, if I had back, I still would not do because he is faster than me. There's no way I would be staying ahead, so it really does make more sense to just try to stick with him here. So far, so good. This lap is going great. Problem is, he slows down a little bit more right there than I was expecting, and so I actually had to back out which then opens up this gap. You see Mitchell actually come around my outside there, and then I have that little slide on the exit of that corner, as I've had a number of times. I have an idea how to fix that, but anyway, that's an idea that I had since this race. So here I am back into third, but this is all right. Just going to keep trying to stick with them. It is, by the way, just about as difficult to see as it appears to be here. Unfortunately, this is the other corner that I've been struggling with, and that's one of the ways. So I'm not really in the draft anymore. All I can do now is just try to put in good laps. Hopefully they'll start fighting later on, and maybe I can catch up. Again, one nice thing is that I am close enough to follow in their tire tracks, so this will be good for working on my lines. So this is going to be another period where there's a number of laps where not a whole lot happens, but that also means I'm not making a whole lot of mistakes, so, I'm going to enjoy it. And yes, that was a small mistake. Anyway, I'll speed it up for you a bit here. And at least that was a different mistake than I usually make through there, so I'm going to call that progress. So this is where the lap traffic really starts to come into play. I'm going to take a narrower line through this corner just because there were the two slower karts on the outside there. And then unfortunately, this next guy I'm going to catch at kind of an inopportune time, and we'll have to lift a little bit right here. But I actually managed to not lift too much, so I'm getting a good run on him out of here. And then he was kind enough to back off and give me a good line into the corner. And I even keep it together on the exit, so going all right down here. I'm kind of running my own race at this point, though, because those guys ahead are getting further away. Looks like they're more working together than fighting, although I'm sure it's a frenemies sort of situation. And looking behind, I'm not really seeing anybody catching up to me either, so I'm really just trying to keep it clean, use the practice, but mostly don't spin out into the grass. So I can see I'm going to catch a couple more karts coming up here, and I'm just really trying to time it so that I catch up to them in a straight and not in a corner, and maybe even can get some benefit drafting behind them before I go by. That's pretty much my only chance, slim as it is, to catch the 2 leaders at this point. That was fine, had to turn in a touch early, but really didn't lose much. And here too, I'm getting a great run down this straight, and that was perfect. Again, just slightly earlier than I would normally turn in, but really my regular line through here. With just a bit of an extra lift there to keep well away from that kart on the side. I think I'm in pretty good shape here, unless something extreme happens or they manage to take each other out, I'm not going to be catching the 2 guys in front. So at this point I'm really just focusing on bringing it home. I'm not trying to get necessarily every 10th out of the laps, which, as it turns out later on, will maybe be a bit of a mistake. Gotta say, though, that may be the best that I took that corner all race, so maybe to some extent not pushing quite so hard is working well. That is not an ideal parking spot. Alright, so this one's tough. We've got a yellow flag waving there, so no passing, and unfortunately this kart is going very slowly, and they're looking around behind them and such, like they want me to go by, but I can't, so I wait, and okay, this is clear, so I can go by. Now, at this point, I glanced behind myself again because, I probably lost 8 seconds or so going through there, and I still didn't see anybody, but I must have either been blind or Todd must have slipped right in behind that same kart, because he was right there and is going to be catching up to me very soon. So yeah, this is where I should have been pushing, but I was thinking, it's the white flag lap, nobody's anywhere near me, my only risk is spinning out, so just take it easy. Which again is probably why I'm able to make that corner without sliding all over the place. Now as I catch up to this guy, I actually hear the whoosh of another kart behind me, and I'm not 100% sure if it's actually the one that I'm catching up to or if what I'm hearing is reality. So I glance over as I go by him, and indeed, there's another kart right there, and you can't see it, but he's actually beside me on the left here, which is why I'm taking that defensive line through there. Now I try to just kind of rest on the apex a little bit to mess up his launch out of that corner, and I do manage to get a good exit, but he must have got a great one because he is right on my right, and you see him shoot by right there. As we crossed the line, I was ahead by maybe 8 inches. On the timing at the end, it was 0.03 of a second. So yeah, that ended up being an incredible finish. I had no idea he was there until it was almost too late, but managed to just squeak onto the podium. So yeah, great day. And the nice thing about making these videos is I end up watching the footage over and over, so I get to see how, for example, this corner right here, I keep losing it in exactly the same way. So I can't wait to get back out there and either try and work on my feel for those, or, you know, at least just preemptively make a little bit of a correction, and hopefully I'm not having to catch the rear end quite so much, and, you know, maybe I'll go faster. There's always second place, potentially. And of course, while AutoTempest doesn't list karts, unfortunately, we can help you find any car that you're looking for, no matter where it's listed in North America. So go check out AutoTempest.com next time you're in the market for a car. And hey, if you are looking for a kart, we also have SearchTempest.com, which can help you search Craigslist, Facebook, eBay, and more up to nationwide. So check that out too. But for now, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you out there.
Where's the other two? I don't know. They're so far ahead that they're already done.